All right, hello and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We are here for the instant reaction review of Clash at the Castle 2, Clash at the Castle Scotland, Clash at the Castle Glasgow, whatever you want to call it. We've ended this
Clash
with
harder.
what was that?
Clash harder. Clash of the Castle.
We've
Clash
ended
harder.
with another Clash harder. Okay, yeah. Well, I think some of the fans might be clashing after this one because we've ended with yet another controversial finish to a Clash at the Castle PLE involving Drew McIntyre. So we're going to be dissecting that and everything else that went down at this huge PLE right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, once again, welcome back to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott. I'm joined by Lucas, and thank you for those that joined us on the build-up show earlier on, and thank you to those coming back for this instant reaction review. Lucas, it was again a controversial finish. Overall, though, what did you think of the show? And we'll break it down match by match as we go along. But your first kind of thoughts as we come out of it.
I think it was pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. I think there were some lower parts of the evening which we'll get to go match by match, but I think it was all in like a pretty good evening of wrestling.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's one of those where the ending might leave a bit of a cloud over it. And as you kind of allude to there are definitely parts of the show that didn't hit as much as others. But overall, like you say, good night of wrestling. It's one of those, and it's more nearer, isn't it, of the 5-match card and just being like, yeah, content, that's cool. Especially here in the UK, it's 10 p.m. now, feels very weird. We're usually starting our build-ups at this point. So there we go. We can kind of get on with the weekend and watch England start to bring it home tomorrow for the Euros. But hey, let's not annoy the Scottish fans too much because they're already annoyed with what went down at the end of the show. But they've got a few things to be happy about. Not only did they get a good PLE, they did get hometown lasses, if you will, winning gold as well. So yes, while it wasn't a successful night for all the Scots on this card, it was one where I've got to say, for me, there was a big surprise in the women's tag title changing hands. Before we get into that, though, let's go match by match. And don't worry, guys, we are going to get to the Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, Damian Priest scenario as well. Be interesting to hear what people think. So let us know in the comments what you think of the show overall. And as we go through the matches, please, would love it if you let us know what you thought of the match that we're talking about as well. So let's start at the very beginning. We did start out with, quite surprisingly, in the modern era, but not so much for this card, considering what else was going on. But we saw WWE Undisputed title open the show. We had the match between Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles, and not only that, it was an I Quit match, so a gimmick match opening up the PLE as well. Again, not something we usually see, but it did kind of make sense, you know, needs must and all that when it comes to a PLE that heavily features hometown people and a big storyline for another world title. But regardless, we started out again with the WWE Undisputed title, and this was a very good show, mate. What did you think of the opening match?
Fantastic match. Really, genuinely a fantastic match.
Yeah.
My gripes with it are things that happen after the match, but if we're talking like, you know, kind of bell to bell, and the entrances as well, to be fair, though I do miss AJ Styles' old theme. I think Cody's theme's a banger, and they can never change that. You know, but no, I thought it was a really good match. I liked how it really built. You know, up to a lot of things. You know, so it had like a lot of just good wrestling at the start, then built to like the brawl around the arena, building into using some weapons, building into the personal elements with obviously Cody's mum being there. And like really vicious towards the end. Like and people, you know, people spoke about this quite a lot over there, and I've noticed it quite a lot actually recently. I watch NXT quite a lot, and I do feel there is this more physical side that's able to come out in the product overall. Like I do notice it. I do notice that in terms of how the wrestlers are told to, or maybe not told to, but how the wrestlers are doing their offense and receiving the offense, seems to be much more kind of sports based, more like real. You know, and so even like in this, obviously you're not going to get a sport outside WWE where you use chairs and kendos. Like it did feel like it was quite brutal. The chair shots, the belt, when he was whipping with a belt and with the kendo stick, then when they had the handcuffs and then AJ being cuffed, and it all just felt like very real. I would personally have preferred. I'm not a fan of the villain screaming "I quit" before the offense had taken place. That makes sense. I think wasn't there one where like Cena was like an AA someone off the stage, something they said they screamed "I quit." I think Batista.
Was it, or maybe even Wade Barrett, or no? It might.
Yeah.
Batista was the whole last man standing with duct tape, which always makes me laugh. But yeah, there was definitely one with Cena. Yeah.
I think it was even an AA him off the stage, and then he screamed "I quit" and Cena went away.
That. Yeah.
I'd rather the move to be done, and I felt that what made. I guess it's hard because they already had the thingy onto the steps, didn't they? The crossroads onto the steps, but no, onto the chair. Sorry, but they could have done like the crossroads onto the steel steps, and then he quits after that.
Yeah.
Bless me.
I think your nose just quit there.
I thought it was a really good match. Like really good match. Like, my gripes with what happened afterwards. What were your thoughts on the actual match, though?
Overall, I agree with you. I think it was very hard hitting. The fact we got blood pretty early on. I mean, some people could look at that as, it's a Ric Flair match. He's going to bleed. It's starting to feel the same way about Cody Rhodes at the moment as well. But hey, I think it had its place in this match. Even if it was the opener, it's a little odd in that sense. But still, it made sense within the context of the match. Using Mama Rhodes, when you hear that, you feel like, I didn't think The Rock was showing up, don't get me wrong, but I felt like there was something going on with the story. Didn't really work that well. Well, I guess it did. I mean, she slapped AJ about 3 or 4 times, which was quite funny. And then Cody Rhodes,
got to pop each time as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that chant got into a Mama Rhodes for a little bit as well, so that was quite good. You mentioned like the handcuffs. I did like the little swerve where we all see a bag, we think it's thumbtacks or pins, and AJ says, "I know, I know what you're thinking, but this is better," or something like that, and it ends up being the handcuffs. Now, handcuffs are used quite a bit in I Quit matches, I feel, and Last Man Standing, 2 very similar match types, of course, but a slightly different ending. And I do kind of see it the way you do, really, where the fear of the big move is a bit weird.
Handcuffs now as well. I feel like they're different, like they're longer, aren't they?
They do look different. Yeah. Maybe the chain's just longer or something like that. There was something about it. I guess it's more versatile. They can use in different ways and whatever else. But that whole kind of the heel being scared of the big move, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't as well. Yes, you get Cody doing it afterwards, which is kind of a heel move himself. Still going ahead with it. I guess, they did the whole kind of asking his mom, and his mom was like, yeah, do it, because she'd just, been annoyed at AJ herself. But it was weird to me because it's kind of I'm in 2 minds about it. It's kind of a weak finish in some ways, but in some ways I understand it. I feel like Michael Cole laid the seeds for it, though. He literally said it was going to happen. It felt like before it happened, as soon as he got in the ring with that, he basically, I can't even remember what he said. It's something along the lines of, wouldn't this be terrifying to see come at you? As if to put in your head, AJ might quit here. Because that's the problem with I Quit matches. Like, it's not like Last Man Standing, you can choke slam someone through a flaming table when they can't get back up. But no one's going to... It's hard to do certain moves and then go, I quit from that. Like, because the worst is over. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like a pinfall or anything like that where you're down because of it.
A small part where it fell apart was when AJ locked in the STF. And then Cody passed out. And then AJ went to, wake him up. But also, well, Cody ruined that a little bit by kind of already being woken up. That could have been much better if Cody stayed grounded. And AJ actually woke him up, but he started stirring around and stuff, didn't he? But it didn't detract too much. But the whole point was, you could theoretically just make someone pass out, but that's not going to win you the match.
They can't. Yeah.
Which is maybe territory they're going to flirt with in the future. Because I always say this every time something happens, they always like something just being done the one time. Just to say it's happened. Like I call it the Big Show foot through his table roll. Like they did that just because that's it.
So it can happen, yeah.
So it can happen. Someone can accidentally go through the table, like they can be pushed and their foot goes to the table because they're big, and that's the way that someone can win a match. But it's happened once. That's it. Similarly, when Sheamus won the WWE title, we pushed John Cena through the table.
Yeah,
like John Cena, it was like the whole slip kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's like with this I Quit thing, it's like is this going to come back in the future on us a bit? Are they going to be looking at that and go, well, was that time, remember, and we're going to try it again when the person, they're completely incapacitated. Curiously, where would the referee decide to take the match after that?
Yeah, because it can't end. Yeah, you're right. If they're knocked out, does it end up being a no contest or something like that? And someone I think it worked better the other way around. If a babyface was desperate to wake them back up, and you're like, oh my gosh, after all this, they still couldn't do it, and maybe they're upset the rest of the decision.
Are we then kind of reaching Fiend and Hell in a Cell territory though? Like we've obviously, if you've got a match like this, essentially anything can go. And the thing is, you just need to be able to hear the words "I quit."
Yeah.
And anything other than those words into the match,
feels disappointing.
Again, they've already done when The Rock played the video, the voice message of Mankind saying it, that kind of gimmick to get out of it. But I mean, in terms of, I Quit matches, I think like Laugh and Standing matches, WWE kind of have their own way of doing them, I guess, and this seems to be the way they do it. If the villain's losing, it's happened obviously numerous occasions now. Similar like Last Man Standing matches, they have a way that they do them, and I guess some fans might be a bit like, oh, I wish they could have done it this way, but just not really a WWE way. But I think in terms of like a WWE I Quit match, I think it was very, very good. I think it was very good.
Yeah, despite the kind of, because I don't think either of us are fully against the finish, but we're not fully for it either. And I feel like a lot of us are going to feel the same way. Obviously, we're doing this straight after the show's ended, so we haven't even seen the online discourse of it. But I imagine people are going to feel similar to us. And even with that in mind, as you say, still a very entertaining match. So yeah, starting out with a very, very strong match there. WWE World title on the line. It doesn't change hands. Also, at the end of the match, we do get quite a bit going on as far as interference goes. We get Solo Sikoa coming out. And I like the visual of it. I liked Cody being like, and he's right next to him. You know what? I even liked the brawl between the Bloodline and Randy and to get their Alton Pop and KO as well. What I don't really like is Cody versus Solo again, if that's where we're going. If we're going into a weird 6-man feud and somehow it just turns into Alton turning on Cody, then hey, you've won me round because I want to see that instead. But Cody versus Solo is a bit of a concern to me. What were your thoughts on that kind of final few moments really from this match?
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, by this point, once you add in the entrances and the promo packages, like this match had been 45 minutes, almost 50 minutes of the show, I think. And then you decide to add in basically setting up the next feud. Because think of an I Quit match, it's a definitive finish to a feud because there can't be a way out like after this for the villain. So obviously it's and usually obviously they'd follow the rule of three where they'd have like 3 matches usually back to back and sometimes even 4. Vince would stretch it quite a long time, especially once you added the TV matches and stuff. But with this one, it's like this is. And again, something which again maybe we didn't touch upon. I think it most likely will be AJ Styles' like last kind of pay-per-view main event / world title feud as well.
Yeah.
I don't really see a way back for him after this. I mean, I could be wrong, as this game goes. But yeah, I think for me, it just felt a bit like adding on like just to get the Alton Pop. But he was already on SmackDown last night, so I would have left it at that. And then gone into SmackDown this week with that as a fresh thing. But ultimately, it wasn't too long. But I did feel a bit for Cody because, have a half an hour match and then you still got to do this like
little brawl.
And it also as well, like think of like an I Quit match. You're meant to be selling that whole like, it's like, in terms of WWE, it is like as extreme and as hard as it gets. And now, this guy's able to A, walk out of there, and B, still able to like another segment afterwards. So I maybe just would have left that to the SmackDown afterwards.
Yeah, it did seem kind of crammed in. Maybe kind of, unnecessary. I guess it was a way to get the bloodline on the show as well, but just like Orton, really, they'd had their involvement the night before.
I thought it was already sorted. I mean, I guess maybe they want to announce maybe a 6-man tag or something for SmackDown, or
potentially on the
goes further.
They've got the press conference thing after, haven't they? So that's going on as we speak. So it's potentially an opportunity there to announce a match during that as well. Let's move on though to the next match that took place. We touched on it briefly just a moment ago. There was a title change for this one. We saw Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defend the titles against Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, Isla Dawn, and Alba Fire. Now this was a shock for me because I remember Dan earlier in the week saying that maybe Shayna and Zoe are in it to basically take the pin so that the Scottish people don't lose. And I didn't really think that the champs were losing here. I do think that they're going to be turning on each other or something like that further down the line. And maybe we're going to get to that quicker than I expected. But maybe this is all about giving the Scots something to be happy about. But even, in hindsight, now that we've seen the other matches again, which we'll get to. Speaking of the match, though, I actually quite enjoyed it as well. I thought it was pretty cool seeing at the start the Scotland chants basically for Fire and Dawn.
They didn't announce that they were from Scotland, did they?
They what? Sorry,
they didn't announce that they were from Scotland in the intro.
No, because where's the tag team?
But
because I thought the same thing was missing that on their entrance. It was another case of a million theme songs just not being striking enough for people to go, yeah, here they are. So it did feel somewhat
where they had a name, didn't they? Like on Holy Union or something.
Yeah, because it was on their Tron. I think it's still on their Tron, but they didn't say it like that. Before they just announced them as their last names, I'm sure as well. But either way, they were getting the Scotland chants. Jade Cargill dressed up as, seemingly at least, from Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. I know you're not really someone that watches it, but and then you had Bianca Belair as the dragon. Now, of course, not really a link to Scotland, but I get where they're coming from with the castle theme, and there's the dragon in the logo.
They're just the same area.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Exactly. But yeah, that was cool. Little cosplay, if you will. They dressed up. That was kind of cool. But yeah,
as well, like the Road Warriors. They had spikes.
True.
Though, I found this one like okay. I think as well, you think about it, it's kind of like a nice turnaround for Fire and Dawn, though, because obviously they had previously lost the NXT tag belts to Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey, like this time last year, pretty much.
Right, yeah.
Bank, and we know what happened there at Ronda afterwards. Ronda would tell you on various platforms. But I think no, it was a nice kind of like moment there, and it was a shock. But then I also wouldn't be shocked if, especially because I don't know if you saw the promo they did later on the show. The last line that I think Dawn said is like, we're going to have these for a long time. And I went, why do you say that for? You're losing on Friday. You're losing them straight back.
To them too as well, yeah. They'll get them straight back. And that is a possibility because as much as I say, oh yeah, surely Jade's going to turn on Bianca and surely a SummerSlam match or a SummerSlam turn, I'm more leaning towards a SummerSlam turn. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did get the titles back for that. It will feel like British Bulldog winning the hardcore title at Insurrection or Rebellion, whatever it was, and then losing the next night on Raw. But or next show on Raw. But it was a nice moment.
Yeah, I do think in a way though that some of this is just the fact that they've had so many long title reigns that it almost is a shock when someone doesn't now, which potentially is a good thing because it's creating like these unique moments which before we were treated to an abundant, but now it's like with some of the belts in particular, it's been so rare that we've seen them change hands and remembered how to react. And like, how do I use his hands to clap? Like, I'm happy. So it has something change, but and also I think the old way of booking things has always conditioned us to being like two people are walking out together. When are they going to turn each other? Who's going to turn who? When's their singles match coming?
I mean, even the losing of the titles felt like that, right? So it is kind of refreshing that it is. I mean, they could have sowed the seeds because it was Jade who got dragged off and suplexed. But it weren't exactly like they, were annoyed at each other at the end of this. So
no, it felt very just like, okay, we lost, and I guess they're gonna do they can paint the whole world. Cargill's not experienced in terms of these matches and the whole anything. And again, triple threat exists because of this as well. Like it's protected the champs. And at this point, I know there'll be people. There's probably not. There's always an angry person on Twitter every time Shayna Baszler loses, but the ship has sailed. Like in the nicest possible way. 4.5 years ago when she dominated the chamber and was looking likely to beat Becky Lynch at Mania. And we know how that ended up afterwards.
Yeah.
And then she had a tag team with Nia Jax, and she'd done some stuff in NXT, but like she just isn't that person. She isn't the caliber of person that she once was. Look, like she's still getting on pay-per-views and getting TV time, which in WWE is like a huge kind of thing. But I think the ship sailed in terms of her being protected and, her suffering from this loss. Like she took a massive move from the tag team champions who they both are going to be the future faces of that company in one way or the other. I'd be very surprised if Jade Cargill this time next year is not one of the women's singles champions. Potentially going down this tag route is the path to that, because maybe the turn just never happens. Like maybe they the team just comes to a natural end, or they do a turn. Like it could be once Jade Cargill wins, like maybe wins a Rumble next year. Because another thing I'm noticing with the Rumbles obviously is that people who don't win a year or two ago then end up winning. Happened with Bianca Belair, happened with Rhea Ripley. Like they come so close and then they eventually build up to winning. Bayley as well, another one. But like I think it's what was missing for me is bring back tag team names. It's so weird just seeing like two people come out and just have their names and no like tag team name, or
it always feels thrown together still. Even when they start wearing wearing similar gear and stuff like that. Again, like we saw with the champs, former champs now. There's these little things that they could just. I mean, awesome truth to it. Do you know, like that's enough. That little things like that do help.
Even if they wanted to just call them Fire and Dawn, I think that's not a bad name.
But I feel like that's what they were doing at first, but then they just don't do it anymore. But anyway,
where did this unholy union come from then? I swear that it's somewhere.
Yeah, they used that. Yeah, I don't know, man.
They did that previously on NXT, maybe. I mean, it hasn't carried on over to the main roster.
Maybe, but I swear it was on their graphic though. Like in their back on their Tron, not on their names. But I can't remember not on their nameplate, but on their Tron. I'm sure it showed it. Or so. Anyway, gonna get to a few of these comments here. First from your body, Matt, who's being a bit cheeky there, saying, "Great to see Roddy Piper and Abdullah the Butcher live." Well, I've gone for the Piper. Yeah, he ain't got a fork sticking out of it either, or bleeding everywhere. I went for Roddy for obvious reasons. The Scottish background and a little bit of tart.
You do know he's Canadian, right? He is Canadian.
I know he's Canadian. Just not sure if he knew. But anyway, what an incredible performer. Matt Ball says as well, more serious comments now. It's a shame pay-per-views are going away of either C/B class shows, limited good stuff, or A+, what pay-per-view should be. This and France weren't great. We were talking about earlier on the build-up show, weren't we, Lucas, about how some of these, we talked about what I think 5 of the international shows and kind of ranked them quickly earlier. It felt for me like France and Australia really are the ones that lack the most. I feel that this is somewhere in the middle. I think a little bit of hindsight might help it go either way for me, but I think middle is probably a fair assessment when you look on the other side of it. The other clash in Cardiff, I do think was better. Money in the Bank in London, I do think it was better. Yes, we were at both, so there is that kind of possibility of rose-tinted glasses. And Puerto Rico Backlash was better than this as well. But anyway, still a decent show. Matt continues, says, also embarrassing. The decibels meter was barely yellow. They should have made 100 plus red to make it good. Yeah, it was weird that was in the middle, right? Let's be honest. Not everybody's going to have a kind of inclination of what a decibel, like how high is what and whatever else. So they could have just, it was never going to get to, if that was halfway, it was never going to go full way around. So maybe they kind of shoot themselves in the foot there. I think it was cool when it showed it on screen, but it definitely made the fans cheer louder, which I kind of get. But yeah, I'm not sure how legit that is. But anyway, Matt also says inside WWE, apparently they don't think Cargill was able to work. She's struggling. I think she's been good so far. I agree with what Lucas says, that maybe this time next year she will be what would be red on the scale. Yeah, well, it was tipping around 100, so I guess 200 maybe. Yeah. Kevin also agrees with what Matt was saying there as well. Yeah, I think Cargill has been good. I don't think there's anything that I can go, oh, there you go. I can see why she's being held back.
I think it's still very early days. I mean, she's very protected. She's very protected.
That's
obviously,
keyword, yeah.
There's some luxuries that obviously aren't afforded to other people. And I think that instantly then make people go, she's not any good. But I think she is. But I think in terms of their investment, I think it is a long-term one. I don't think it was ever a case of, and again, they might be able to correct us if we are wrong, but I don't think it was ever a case that she would come in and straight away be having these amazing women's matches that would, kind of already be at the level of like a Charlotte Flair or an Asuka or Becky Lynch or Bayley or any of the other women they've had doing this for like a long time. But I do think they saw, hey, like she turns heads in every room that she's ever going to walk into. She's a star in the making. We've got the production and promotional and marketing to basically push the hell out of her and to get her everywhere. Well, she's limited, but needs time to grow. Maybe NXT would better. See, I think obviously NXT in terms of the women's division, like it's very, very strong, and I think that they've moved away from this like one woman kind of show. The main roster have to an extent, but there's two brands, and there's obviously just a bigger platform for them to wrestle on. Whereas with the NXT, I think there's just too many women.
I think if she went to NXT, the only thing she could have done is what she did in AEW and just got another streak. So I think they tried to not do the same thing, which I can get where you come from, Matt. Especially a few years ago with the way NXT was then, that would have made a bit more sense.
But I think they're also using her as leverage, or will be using her as leverage for a lot of other stars. Say, look, we're not, we are, much as AEW isn't competition to WWE in terms of like direct competition, it is a fact of, look, you've got people on one big platform over here making waves. We don't want to like show them, like, oh, when you come to us, you're only going to be only going to be on our developmental. We're going to actually give you a solid spot. So I think obviously people like herself and Cody, going there like shows that, look, there is going to be like promise.
And long term as well.
I think it's very early days still though. The people are cruel nowadays, like obviously expecting everyone to be over instantly and get amazing reactions instantly. This is just how this era is going to be now, because people are going to be going from one company to the other and hoping that the grass is greener, and fans will be expecting that instantly because they've gone to another company that things will be better. But sometimes things aren't. I mean, look at the Hardys now. They've gone back to TNA after, let's be real, doing nothing in AEW. Absolutely nothing. I think, I don't even think you could get a highlight reel of anything they've done.
I think Matt had a good start, didn't he? But it was in an unfortunate time with this pandemic era. But since that,
I mean, but anyway, until you're talking about someone who took a paycheck off Tony Khan for 4 years, you're not saying like, this is the thing, like, the territory days, you'll get people coming into territory for 6 months. Or even in the early WWF days, you get people who would just sign 1-year contracts. It was a regular occurrence. People didn't stay there long. That they stayed, saw if the money was good, and if the matches were, if the push was good. If it wasn't, they just flip back to WCW or go to elsewhere. But nowadays, it's like we're so accustomed to the fact that people will just stay around for so long, and that's what I'm saying. Jade Cargill was a long-term investment. I don't know whether she's behind or ahead of what they thought. I don't really think that matters. Like at this point in time, I think obviously, really the telltale here for me is that she wasn't pinned in this match. I think there was a way, if they were angry with her performance, there was a way for them to be like, well, we'll pin you, and then you'll get pinned, and we'll take your TV for a little bit, maybe send back to NXT or whatever. But I think the fact that they're kind of continuing this, and she had a good moment as well. Like I think she's one of those where, because I think a lot of people don't like her, the minute she makes a mistake or slip, it's going to get noticed and talked about more. Like plot twist, guys. She's not the first person to ever slip off the ropes. Like she's not. Like countless of the indie favourites have all done it. Like everyone's done it. It happens. She salvaged it. She had an impressive performance. regardless of that, you can tell that she's a bit green sometimes with what she does. But I think being in there with the caliber woman she's in with is really good. But moving away, I do think that, like I do see a bounce back happening. Because I did watch Fire and Nyla Dawn a couple of weeks ago on Raw. They get no reaction. I think there's still that kind of disconnect, in the American audience. I think it was a nice spot for Scotland, but I don't really think they're going to be able to keep them for that long. Also, what happened to Kate? Was it Caden Carter and Chant?
Yeah, they're on Raw. They're
really good.
They helped someone. They made a save the other day on Raw. I can't even remember what it was now.
Okay,
but
I think they're really good, and they got like the matching gear, and they actually seem like they want to be a tag team. I think this is where maybe the division needs to go. It needs to decide: does it want just like random people teaming up and saying they're a tag team for a little bit? Because now one has to imagine that Stark and Baszler has to be done as a tag team now as well. I think it's like their second or third time that they haven't won the belts. But yeah, but overall, it was I thought it was an okay match overall.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next one, quick comment here from Kevin, who kind of adds to what you said there, Lucas, even saying that someone like CM Punk slipped in AEW. Of course, again, the modern day of wrestling internet fans is something that's been thrown around ever since. I know that was kind of made to be like, well, he's getting old and he's past it. But again, even if someone like a pro and a veteran like Punk can make a little mistake, then yes, someone like Jade can as well. It's not a big deal. And wrestling fans tend to have their biases online and make a bigger deal out than they should. But hey, there it is. Let's move on though to the next match. This was one where I was going into it thinking, hold on a minute, we just had a title change. Does that mean we're not going to get one here? And sadly, in my opinion, that was the case. I went into this thinking that something needed to change, Lucas. We were talking about on the build-up show. I was saying, look, there needs to be a turn or a title change, and we kind of got none. Although I was entertained by the match, and I actually quite liked some of the stuff towards the end. I wasn't fulfilled, and I came away thinking, there was no satisfaction without the turn or without the changing of the title. Now, you did get that moment where Gable knocked into Maxine's injured leg.
Yeah.
Otis got angry. We also got the moment where Otis kind of jumped in the way. And then it seemed like, even still, I was like, but maybe Gable's going to do it and they're going to stick with him, because it just felt pointless. Like, he took her away, so he kind of like didn't hit Gable, so we never got that thought, oh my goodness, this happened, and we didn't get the title change. So what was the point? We're going to drag it out again. Now, surely we're going to get one of the other next month or the month after that or something like that. But already I'm feeling like this storyline needs to kind of have a kind of defining moment, and I feel like we're yet to get it. How did you feel about the storyline progression in this match?
It feels like it's over, isn't it? Sure, it's over.
Do you think?
Yeah, he lost cleanly. I mean, I think the storyline within Alpha Academy may continue, but I don't really see how we could get another match, because he lost. He needs
to. But if that was the case, then Gable needs to be doing something for Otis to turn on him. So if Gable's not focused on Sammy still, why does Otis turn?
The only thing I can think of is obviously this thing with the Creed brothers. If now we're going to get, Chad basically cussing out Otis and Maxine, they turn on Chad, and then we go down the routes of getting Chad versus Otis down the line. And obviously, Otis has Tozawa and Maxine on his side, but then Chad Gable brings in the Creed brothers as he's going to people, and then we get Chad over Otis. Is the only thing I can think of at this point. I think definitely for me it was the wrong result, but I've been very vocal on this and thinking that it's all been the wrong result. Chad Gable should have beat Gunther, like absolutely. Yeah. I just think, obviously, I think this is like it's a bit of a sympathy run for Sami Zayn, because they just know they're never going to give him the world championship. Like, it's not going to happen.
It's crazy though. Because he could be at least world heavyweight champ. Like, they could do that. I mean, he could have done the WWE title before, but they could, like, that's what annoyed me the most around WrestleMania. I hate to tread on old ground, but I agree with you. Gunther should have lost to a babyface Gable. And I was saying before you came on air earlier on the build-up that, you know what, I can see the benefit in, like, this giving Otis back the shine he had a few years ago. But if they're not going to pull the trigger in the right way, there's still a risk of losing that as well. So then we lose everything. It's given a bit of longevity to Gable. I saw that he's announced that he's signed on the Gorilla position. Friends of the channel that have appeared on this very channel, they got the scoop there. So congrats to them. But yeah, for me, it was a bit of a disappointment, really. Kevin agrees, really, saying that Gable should have gone over and that this was a big letdown. So, other than that, what did you think of the match, Lucas? Because I thought the match was entertaining.
Like, you know, let's be real. You know, no one here, like on this channel or any channel, really, can ever say Chad Gable is not a good wrestler. Like he's phenomenal. But it's just the fact that I think that it was the wrong result. I think he should have won. You know, I don't know what Sami Zayn gets from this, like to win. I think there was more story. Even they wanted to do a bounce back at SummerSlam, where Gable wins the belt and they do the turn at SummerSlam, and then obviously Sami Zayn gets it back. Like, that's fine if that was to happen. But I think Gable losing here makes him look a bit silly. But if it ultimately is that they're then going to introduce the Creed brothers into this, and then bigger picture is Gable and Otis down the line, and Gable at least gets a win, you know, down the line somewhere. But I do think the win, you know, is the IC Championship, and the fact that it's still not happened is a bit concerning, considering his talent. But then we've been here before, like, you know, let's not forget he was, you know, runner up to Baron Corbin when Corbin became King of the Ring, you know, 5 years ago, and that was already when people were saying he was underrated, like 5 years ago. Like, do you know what I mean? And then the stuff he's been able to do, like, since then, like, he's a world-class talent, and he's so good at what he does.
And the fact they got the Alpha Academy over the way they did in the first place is a testament to him as well. But yeah, it is just a shame. I mean, I personally think the feud is continuing, and I'm going to give him another chance if that is the case, because I do think surely the best thing to do is Gable wins the IC title and Otis takes it off of him. That is the
only thing
best way to go about it.
They didn't want this title change happening on this show because of obviously the Scotland thing, and they want to save that for an American crowd, which I am down for if that was to happen. But then he was saying that the next crowd is Canadian.
North America at least, but I could see it happening at Money in the Bank, but then the Money in the Bank, you're always a bit like, oh, will there be title changes because of the two big moments in the briefcase anyway? So hard to tell, but we'll have to see how that goes. Stick with us on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We'll tell you exactly what we think whenever it does go down. With whatever goes down at Money in the Bank as well. We'll be covering that as much as we can on this channel. Of course, we did it in depth last year because it was here in London. If you haven't already, go check out our interviews that we did back then as well, and our interviews from the previous Clash at the Castle with WWE superstars as well. So if you haven't seen those, we do encourage you. We've got great interviews with the likes of Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and the Street Profits, just to name a few. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and check out more of our content. Let's go looking forward, though. Let's go into the next match. We ended up getting the next Scottish opportunity for I was going to say Viper. She's not a Viper anymore, is she? Piper Niven versus Bayley. Now, I did say on the build-up show that I felt like this is the one where you could allow for the Scottish wrestler not to win because the UK fans will be straight behind Bayley. Well, guess what? That happened straight away. They were singing the Hey Bayley song. Kind of highlights from this one, really, was Chelsea Green being sent to the back. Chelsea Green coming out with a mask. I think it was quite funny. And then being attacked by Bayley. Sorry, what was that?
He's such an MVP, you know. Like,
she is, yeah. She's a great performer. She really is. She's got a unique role on the roster, and I do think, it's very enjoyable. Piper nearly wins with a kind of Michinoku driver, but eventually Bayley does pick up the win with a kind of, I guess they were painting it as a bit of a veteran move, because even when they were on the outside, it was kind of like Bayley was looking as if to say, yeah, Piper, you gave me a run for my money type thing, but you know, I'm still that much better. Well, she wasn't saying it that way, but the commentators were putting it that way at least, and she was just looking at Piper in a bit of admiration, it seems, or appreciation at least for the challenge she gave her. But a decent match. It started, I think, a bit quiet, other than those kind of gimmicky spots. and I think the pace in this show was a bit odd in some ways anyway, but maybe that just depends on these confusing results in ways as well. But essentially, Bayley gets the win, and I didn't think it was going to be Piper's time. I'm okay with that. And it looked like she was someone at the end of that match thinking, I'm just proud of where I am. And and I think they should be proud of the position they were in, really. What do you think?
Yeah, because didn't Piper Niven have a match, I think as Doudrop, against Becky Lynch at the Rumble a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah. Like randomly as well, like last minute, she was thrown in or something.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, she attacked her on Raw, and then that was a match.
Yeah.
And that obviously went down like a lead balloon, and obviously we spoke a lot about the Rumble shows, and again we'll come up next month when we speak about the Money in the Bank shows, where it feels like the stuff that's not the main matches always feels a bit weird being on the show. And really, to be fair, it's where you could use a pre-show Triple H, because it feels like a very long stretched out night when there's stuff happening. People just want to see people get thrown off ladders. But anyway, that's next month's complaint. But I think in terms of this match, like, it was inoffensive. The problem they had here is obviously the crowd were really behind Drew. I think they kind of just looked at Alba Fire and Iron Dawn and went, yeah, you're from here, so we'll cheer you a little bit. And they had the luxury of going on earlier as well. But by this point, the crowd were a little bit tired.
Yeah.
And I think the gimmick, essentially, of having people from the town or from the city is like it wears thin after the second person anyway, after the first person won. And so there was a bit of an uphill battle. The in-ring action, though, was quite solid, especially towards the end. And something we didn't even touch upon, I don't know if you mentioned it, but is the fact that Bayley has awful finishes, like genuinely terrible finishes. And I was like, please don't say she's going to win with one of those awful moves. Like just on something like Piper. Like, I think Piper Niven's very underrated, actually. But yeah, anyway, I thought, doing the move she did was a better option, and potentially just have that become her finish now. The Rose Plant is god awful, and so is the Beta Belly. Like as a finish, like as a move, fair enough, but I don't think that should be the WrestleMania main event win with a bloody Beta back suplex. Even off the ropes, it still doesn't look big and impactful enough. It's so weird. Like a superplex looks really impactful and never wins a match. But yet, like a top rope Beta Belly is meant to be enough to be believable, to be like a main event, winning a match. And it's so less impactful. But anyway, it was the right result. Chelsea Green was the MVP really in this one. To be deadly honest, like it was really genuinely funny her coming back out in the lucha mask, and Corey's reaction and Ray's reaction, just saying that she's like Lucha Green or whatever. I thought that was quite fun. But you can tell with someone like Piper, like she knows very much the moment is her award.
Yeah,
she built up to this over. Because again, like her, like Kaylee Ray, Alba Fire, they were, on the original NXT UK roster. And let's be real, there was a time when, to the NXT roster, having any event in Scotland, let alone the UK, would be like just a pipe dream.
Yeah,
they were doing TV tapings in front of 30 people, weren't they, at one point? All spaced apart. All to no one at one point as well.
Yeah.
NXT UK, sadly, it just died after lockdown, as we know, and merged into NXT. And it must have been a pipe dream. But I think in terms of, it's just like a case of she's got the match, and that's what happened. Obviously, now we know Bayley goes on to face Nia Jax at SummerSlam. We have obviously got the Money in the Bank thing happening as well. Yeah. Which actually, like I said earlier, I think it genuinely makes it interesting. Money in the Bank even more interesting. Because you've got the whole, we know already there's a match at SummerSlam featuring the champion. And so it's a case of now we've got to be thinking, there's now multiple options of how this could go.
Yeah.
And I do foresee a cash-in happening at SummerSlam because of that. Because especially you've got a match you can, as someone who's a briefcase holder, you've got a match to observe. You've got two competitors to observe and see how they work.
Yeah.
And see their weaknesses. Like if we're acting like this is obviously like legitimate, like what I mean? Like, but I think that it was never kind of in doubt. I don't think they're ever going to do like Nia Jax versus Piper Niven. for example.
It also gives them the opportunity, if they have, again, we don't know if there's going to be title changes as well at Money in the Bank. We mentioned on build-up, that's a possibility as well. But it does also give them the option of a get-out-of-jail-free clause, basically, if they have put themselves into the corner, because they can either get someone to quickly cash in, or they can do the kind of RVD thing of saying, I'm in this match, and like basically turn it into a triple threat. I mean, he did it as single, don't get me wrong, but in advance, basically say, I want in, it's SummerSlam, it's a big deal. And then that way, if the champ, because at the moment we're going into, if things stay the way they are with the next match, another example of a heel versus a heel for the World Heavyweight title, which maybe is problematic. So we'll get to that in a minute. Another comment here from Kevin laughing about the old Dewdrop time. To be fair, I interviewed Dewdrop, as she was known at the time, talking about her character change back then. Of course, she's not playing that role anymore. But if you have got the time, I'd encourage you to go and check that out, because there's an interesting little bit of insight behind.
Well, the thing she seemed to really like it. I mean,
she tried her best.
Was obviously being fed to her, and because she really wanted the job. But she genuinely, from your interview and from other people's interviews I saw around the time, she seemed to really like it. So I think as much she's become a bit of a meme and a bit of a kind of like it was Vince being Vince. It did seem like somewhere in that there was something that she enjoyed doing, but I think definitely this is the presentation of her as a wrestler. Absolutely, this is how she should have been wrestling ages ago.
Particularly at that time, I think she was making the best out of it, and it was working quite well. And there was a bit of optimism about, well, yeah, it is this silly Vince thing. It felt like, at least, but then that's the way it ended, unfortunately. And she thankfully has been given this chance, as you say, to kind of be the old version. # Eva Marie. Well, that was quick, wasn't it? That whole kind of forgot about her coming back, and then that was the whole point, wasn't it, with Dewdrop? But anyway, that's another rabbit hole we could be jumping down. Speaking of rabbit holes, it kind of leads me into kind of the QR codes that we saw with Chasing a Rabbit a few years ago, but now, of course, with Uncle Howdy as well. We haven't really had a chance to chat much about these. I won't spend too much time into it as well, but just your brief thoughts, of course, because it did pop up again tonight. I personally am excited to see it again. It looks like it might be leaning towards Raw, because there was a countdown that you could go to, and timer is basically when Raw starts. So hopefully that is going to be the case, or maybe that's just when the next clue is.
Already, haven't they?
Right. Okay.
But then it came up during what match did it come up between?
It was on an entrance.
Was it the IC title? Yeah, it was Sami Zayn, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It was Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
So I mean, does that really? Again, this is where you spoke about it maybe continuing. Is it maybe where they help Chad Gable win the IC title, or they attack Sami Zayn and that's their
and that takes him away? Yeah.
Takes him away from that feud. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of done with the kind of dark gimmicks. I'll be deadly honest. I just feel a bit like, because now the veil has been taken down.
Yeah.
That I can't believe again, that it would be possible. And I think because they overdid it with a lot of the scenes with Bray Wyatt, and I truly believe Bray Wyatt was like the last kind of one to kind of get away with it. I'm not too excited, and I love Bo Dallas. Absolutely love Bo Dallas with every ounce of my body, and that's the only thing that's kind of pulling me into like, support my boy, but. I'm kind of like just done with the dark. I don't know. I think wrestling's moved on. Like, I mean, I talk about it quite a lot. How even look at British wrestling, right? You look at the fact that 10, 15 years ago, people were gimmicks, or they were copying gimmicks of people, and now almost like loads of wrestlers are just their real names, or like real names in general. Like the days of like your Dolph Ziggler's, you know what I mean? Like those kind of names, like they're kind of gone now. And so I think also as a knock-on effect of that, I think then when you start having names, like Uncle Howdy and, some of the other names, I guess they have to rename some other people too. I don't know. And I think as well, like, didn't they learn from Schism and NXT? It didn't get over at all.
I think it's got its place, and I think there's an opportunity for it to work really well. Timing is a big issue, which I think is why they might be making it kind of take a while to kind of get revealed as well. There's a balance to make, because he's obviously on the contract. I don't know if you watched the Bray Wyatt documentary, but they kind of talked about it there. And I only got around to watching that like 2 weeks ago. So all these kind of hints were already happening, but I'd heard that there was something at the end that kind of hinted towards, this happening anyway, and it being Bo. So it kind of put me straight into, I want to see it. I want to see it for the man himself, and I want to see it for Bray's legacy. Of course, a tragic loss, needless to be said. But if you go back and watch our stream when that news broke, we talked back then, as Lucas was saying just there, about kind of this, spooky side of characters, and was it the last one, and how could it be continued with Bo? So a lot of our thoughts have kind of been said there already. But go back and check that out if you haven't already. But look, I'm open to see where it goes, and like you say, Lucas, as well, big fan of Bo's work. Kevin's also in agreement with you as well. I guess it is a risky move, and I imagine you're in the same boat as me, really. That I just want it to work. If we're going to do it, I just want it to work, and I don't want it to end up like a schism situation, like you just said. I really do hope that this can be an opportunity to expand on Bray's legacy and what that storyline could have been, and probably should have been as well. So let's hope it does pay off, and I'm looking forward to seeing Bo as an entertainer get that opportunity as well, because he's a fantastic talent.
Bo's fantastic, and that but I mean, obviously we'll get to that. That might affect obviously Money in the Bank next month, as if they do debut it tomorrow on Raw. One would have to imagine they'll be setting stuff up for the next on pay-per-view. And that time, obviously, I guess we'll be on stream as well. Around the time of probably one of the most fun events of the year, I think.
I would say so,
Isn't it? Like Rumble, Rumble's fun. So is this. So Money in the Bank, sorry. SummerSlam's also a bit fun as well. It's in the summer, and it's But anyway, no, I think before we get there, obviously, we must always discuss about the main event of this show we just watched. We're getting up there in a bit of time, but look, Damian Priest still leaving with the World Heavyweight Championship in a match that went completely to plan, completely how we thought it would go. Now this was a very interesting one because I mean, firstly, let's obviously I want to wish that Damian Priest is okay after that fumble.
So do you think that was a legit accident and he was legit injured? Because he was tiptoeing like it was, and it was the moves that he does. But then when they showed the replay, they showed it once, and I was like, I could see where there's a scenario where that was planned and that he knew that would happen. But it's a very risky move to pull off, and because that's what I first noticed had gone wrong, that the flip was too close to the ring. And then I looked up and saw his leg, and then you saw Drew kind of hesitant to kind of take advantage.
Yes,
as if he was actually just in case he was actually injured. But then I was like, no, maybe he's selling. Maybe either way, props to him, because if it was planned, it was amazingly executed, and if it weren't planned, the fact that Damian Priest got through that match and the fact that he wasn't seriously injured, well, we don't know, he may be injured, but the fact he wasn't kind of, didn't whack his head or anything like that, and Drew took care of him, is absolutely incredible. So either way, props to the guys involved with the match.
I mean, obviously, just hope he's okay. Obviously, we'll find out, obviously, if anything else comes up from that. But no, I think, in my head, I think it was definitely an accident that happened, and then they had to obviously work with it. With the ref checked as well. That was where the ref didn't get him out of the ropes, like, straight away. But yeah, like it happened. But but in a way, it kind of helped that latter half of the match, because you knew Damian Priest had a weakness. Now, I'm going to say something weird here about Drew, and you might disagree, other people might, but there is like this weird formula to his matches where after like a minute or two, his matches just become like, I do a big move and pin you, you kick out. You do a big move, you pin me, and I kick out. You know what I mean? Like, I do a big move, and then obviously once you add in the other stuff like going outside and then blah blah, it is just that formula. Like there's never really like a prolonged time where he's taking offense, and this isn't just him actually as well. Like Rollins does it quite a lot as well. I think it's becoming the kind of main event style of WWE, where it's just like, my go, your go, my go, your go. Look at the Tron. Any interference coming? No. Okay, we'll keep going. My go, your go. My go, your go. 15 minutes past yet? Cool. Yeah. Keep going. My go, your go. My go, your go.
Yeah.
And because, because obviously, like he hits, I think it was like a minute and a half in, spine buster. Like, oh, okay, we're already in big moves. Like, then it's like, okay, like a suplex or like whatever. And then Obviously, you had some nice teasers here as well, and some nice like homages back to the original Clash. And look, I think we got to separate this. So in terms of the match part of it, it was a very strong match, I felt. In terms of like, bell to bell. Maybe a little too long for my liking, but I had the angle in the middle, which we discussed separately. Decision-wise, I'm torn, because while I do think that there's more future for the World Heavyweight Championship with Drew as the holder, I do think that the feud between Drew and Punk may actually be better off without the championship involved. But then I don't really know whether it leaves Priest, because I don't know who's going to be jumping in the hat to face him. Especially as he's a villain, and on Raw, I don't know. He's already faced Jey Uso. And again, this is where, to be fair, if Chad was to win the IC title tonight, Sami Zayn could have done the whole losing upwards to then face Damian Priest, and that would be a good match. At least a good match to kind of put on the bucket list. But we'll go from that. But I think match-wise, how did you feel then? Because I felt it was a decent match, but we'll talk about that separately, I think.
All right, let's do that. So let's stick with the match rather than the decision in the ending for now. But going back to Priest's injury, watching him use his I assume he's predominantly right-handed and footed, using his left leg until he hit two quite strong spinning kind of kicks with his right, which kind of was more impactful, as you said. I think it did play into, which is why it felt planned or possibly planned, because it was like, this is just wrestling 101, you know what I mean, when you play on an injury. So they did very well to, if that's not the case, turn a real injury into that, and be able to kind of work with it. I like the little moments like Drew's keep up with the crowd, and all that kind of stuff. But as you say, there was this back and forth constantly, formulaic but still enjoyable. And I think, as you said, it is just that main event style, something that I think actually first of all peaked at the kind of WrestleManias with The Undertaker, and then was borrowed and used and kind of ramped up even more in New Japan, and now has made its way back to America with AEW and WWE in that sense as well. And I think with Drew it happens because he's in a lot of high profile matches, like where it's like, this could be huge. Like his first ever, his whole story about coming back and winning the title. Yes, it was in front of no fans, but it had a bit of that. And then you had it again with, his WrestleMania just gone, and you've had it tonight, you've had it at Clash, where we talked earlier on about in Cardiff as well. So I do see where that formula comes in, and it works for the most part, we got to be honest. I did like the big moves that were included in that formula, the claymores through the barrier, the claymore that was turned into a choke slam, the claymore that was kicked out of, the referee being knocked down, the power bomb, and all this kind of stuff to stop a claymore as he came in again. And now we're getting into territory at the end of the match, so I'll hold off a little bit. But yeah, the match itself I thought was enjoyable. And again, I cannot praise both performers more than if it was legit. And again, even if it weren't legit, the fact I'm sitting here going, I don't know if that was legit, that was great, is either way, I think they performed incredibly. And as you mentioned earlier on, the ref kind of taking his time to get him out of that leans to it probably being legit. But then even that, the role the ref has to play in it, the role of people backstage has to play in it. Because when I was watching him hop around, I thought, well, if it ain't the plan, there's a chance that Drew's going to say, Priest is going to say, this is the plan. I'm done. For the next few months or wherever it may be. And hopefully that's not the case. But there was a chance that Audible could have been called and stuff like that as well. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of comes of this, as far as the fallout goes, what happens with Raw and any reports of him being legit injured, and if so, how bad that is. But yeah, I have to agree. It was a really good match. Kevin agrees, says it was really good. Well, he thinks maybe it was a work as well. Punk and McIntyre don't need a title for a feud. I would agree with that as well, because this is kind of one of those blood feuds, as we say, but the option with Priest now going on to Gunther, we said earlier on, is the main thing because the SummerSlam. But hey, we got to get to SummerSlam first of all with Money in the Bank, right? So maybe don't even have a match at Money in the Bank because it's already a stacked show, or maybe it does and it's someone completely different. But or Drew again and Punk screws him again, which leads us into the ending. Right. I don't know, man, because it's controversial, right? I don't think I can understand why not giving the title makes sense, because in the grand scheme of things, at the moment, the feud with Punk is kind of bigger than the title, I should say. And Priest, as I said on the build-up show, maybe should keep it to make his reign mean a little bit more as well. But at the same time, just like in Cardiff, you can't doubt that on the night it's a bad decision to have fans go home unhappy. And I think the way they executed it was kind of poor as well. The parts of it I liked Punk coming in, and as soon as he slid in, I was like, I know the back of that head.
Yeah, same.
Punk. And I liked that aspect to it, right? I did like that.
They did a good job, but they covered, obviously, he had sleeves, so they covered his tattoos. So
good. I didn't even notice that. I didn't even pay attention to that. Yeah.
It was a very good shot.
It was. And then they turn it around. McIntyre realizes it plays into their feud. The problem is you was in Glasgow and McIntyre wasn't the heel today. And that's the main problem you got. You got fans visually swearing at CM Punk. You got fans booing him and stuff like that. It was just a tough call. And I mentioned on the build-up show, he's a 50-50 character anyway. Still kind of treading on eggshells in some ways because of what happened outside of the WWE. So it's a risky move. That being said, the visual and the kind of spot itself was good. It was just, in my opinion, on the wrong PLE. And after what happened in Cardiff, if I was there tonight, I would be even more disappointed. I was massively disappointed in Cardiff. I'd be even more so than I am tonight if I was there in person as well, because I just feel deflated coming out of that arena. And I wouldn't want the feeling of, I'm annoyed at Punk, because Punk's a babyface at the moment and Punk is a legend. Let's have it, have it right. So I was saying on air earlier on in the build-up show, in my opinion, the best way to go about it was have the match over, Punk comes out, gets a pop, and everybody's happy because it didn't ruin Drew's thing. Maybe that can't be the case because they've got plans for Priest and whatever else for the title. Maybe that's the case. But it just felt like it fell flat, and it was a bit of a slap in the face of the fans in attendance.
I don't know. I think it didn't seem, I don't know, like... They didn't seem to show a lot of the crowd afterwards, which I guess maybe was intentional. But they kept it very closed in on Drew and then on Punk and whatever. But I don't know. I don't feel I'd have been that surprised at that. Like, I think particularly because they've had that thing where they haven't really cared too much about his hometown pop for ages. And I think it's maybe an ongoing problem with these international shows, because if this finish had happened in America, no one would really care.
Yeah.
And potentially,
I'd be all for it if it happened in America. It's the right call in America.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess it depends where they take this going forward, because like Punk is essentially now a de facto villain against Drew, but it's not gonna. I don't think it will go that way. And probably shouldn't. Look, I think in terms of all the possible outcomes that we discussed and many other people discussed and you heard about, this was probably like one of the best ways of doing it. I think they limited Punk's involvement in it to just one thing. It was executed very well. I was worried. Someone mentioned about Judgment Day coming out and then Punk kind of fighting through them and saving the match or whatever, but I just felt that would be a bit too messy. Other people mentioned about a direct Punk interference, which kind of did happen, but it was done differently, I guess. I think ultimately, if their goal was to get to Drew versus Punk, they've done it. But it's just a case of what's next for Damian. That's the problem here. I mean, they've actually just exposed that as a bigger problem. Like, what's next for Damian? Because, that the Punk and Drew feud is the biggest thing on Raw now, and it's not involving the champion. And Money in the Bank is obviously going to dominate, the qualifiers and all that. They're going to dominate a lot of the discourse for both brands going forward. So Damian Priest is now basically third fiddle to that. And obviously you have got a women's world champion as well. So obviously, and it's 50-50 booking. So you could argue Damian Priest could even end up becoming fourth most important on his brand. And, he best hope that The Rock or Roman don't want to return. Because we might be seeing Damian Priest on the only world champion to be on, like, main event.
Oh, gosh.
But, I think, hopefully they address this again. I mean, a line that Michael Cole did say as it ended is, Monday Night Raw is now must see, and it is. I hate to say it, like it is. They've done it.
Yeah,
like they make because especially as well because Drew, he stayed down for a long time, in the ring. There was no, Punk went straight to the crowd, so they've done it so that on purpose. I'm assuming like there's been no interaction between them.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, he didn't cost him the match.
No.
So it's just that what makes it worse is Cardiff, because it's like, oh, you've done it to the fans again. That's the problem. And we used to always get the hometown person loses all the time on the Vince anyway. And you can't every time there's a PLE shove someone in the limelight and like they always like it can't.
It made it hard.
Anyway.
There was 3 of them this time, 3 matches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was just one. Like I think. I don't know, saying that if it was just one and Drew lost, I guess that would be worse because. But at least this one,
all your eggs would be in one basket, sort of thing.
Winning.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think it's one of those where, even the bigger scheme of things, if we're looking at SummerSlam, and Drew versus Punk is an absolute banger, and Drew gets a moment, Drew gets a win at SummerSlam, and they get a good rivalry with Damian Priest going into SummerSlam. Do you know what I mean? Or like he gets cashed in on, it's a good cash in, and then we get a new champion at Money in the Bank or just after, whatever. And we could be looking back at this and going, you know what, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it is probably for a bigger discussion. This because obviously as we look at these international events, we have to see that maybe they are just being booked like they are in America, and just with some of the international kind of things, because. End of the day, America's now going to get 4 weeks of television to build up the next pay-per-view. We're not.
Yeah.
They're not back in the UK. They're back in the UK, I think, in November, aren't they? October, November time for a house show tour, but not for TV. But yeah, look, I think ultimately, Triple H, and I'm sure Michaels, how they produce television at least, and how Triple H to produce pay-per-views, is they like this kind of like talking point. No matter what it is, like right from the get-go, don't forget Damage Control debuted on SummerSlam, didn't they?
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar returned at SummerSlam, at the end, didn't he? We had like, lots of those kind of things happen on pay-per-views. Same with I mentioned him earlier, Bray Wyatt turning at the end of it. I think it was Extreme Rules, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. At the end. So like he likes his talking points, and I guess he's got it. Like he's got the talking points.
True.
We want to see what happens on Raw between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, and when that match is going to go down. What stipulation? What's going on there? Like again, if Punk's cleared to wrestle now, we guess. And again, when we can, are we going to see CM Punk in ring action before that?
I think it's another one. Like I say, it's worse because of Cardiff, but it's not as bad as Cardiff. Weirdly enough, because it's not the WWE title. Damian Priest is surely going to do something else. We just got to figure out what it is. Like I say, you got Money in the Bank. There's all these scenarios there, and as you say, we can see what's next for Drew. It might not involve the title, but it is still a pretty big feud that you imagine would be happening anyway because of the whole CM Punk thing coming out of WrestleMania. A few more comments here. Once again from Kevin says, yeah, imagine paying to see that show live. Again, referring to the ending of just a little bit of flat. I don't think he is, but I wonder if Tyson Fury singing another song this time around. Didn't hear about that. Kevin also says, it's my mum's birthday today. Guys, it could have been a better show. She's crying out. And I went, I hope your mum's not really crying, mate. But if that's true, happy birthday to your mum.
Well, it's Bayley's.
It was Bayley's birthday. At least she won on her birthday, so that's nice for her, ain't it? So
that also kind of killed that match as well for me. Because like the Umber's bit of like, she's not going to come out and be told it's her birthday and lose surely.
Yeah. Well, it would have been a mega heel move.
Birthday beats hometown. So
that's
now
it.
Someone's got to have a match in their hometown on their birthday.
Yeah.
Like that's like you can't lose. That's like a Goldberg win.
It'll be a DQ or something like that, they'll find a way around it, double count out or something like that. But anyway, it's been fun chatting wrestling with you once again, Lucas. As you mentioned, we'll be back for Money in the Bank, hopefully before that as well. But thank you to everyone that joined us earlier tonight on our build-up show. for those that joined Dan and Lucas earlier in the week as well on our preview prediction show for this event as well. And of course, those that have joined us here for this instant reaction review. We are the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We cover pro wrestling, as you would imagine, in podcast form, but we also get the opportunity to chat to your favorite WWE superstars as well. So if you haven't already, check out our interviews with the likes of Bayley, with the likes of Zelina Vega, or you might be interested in watching things like SummerSlam 2002 all over again. 2003, I should say. We have done 2002 as well. If you want to go and check those out, we have watch-alongs on this channel. We have deep breakdowns on things like the best and worst WrestleMania logos, just to name a few. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and check out more of our content. It's been a good show all round. I do think it was, again, somewhere in the middle when it comes to these international PLEs. I'm coming away from it thinking, oh, good, but at least I'm not having to kind of walk back to a hotel disappointed. I don't think the vibe will be as bad as Cardiff. I mean, that's strong saying, because we all came out of Cardiff buzzing from the show, but confused about the ending. So maybe
I think
it'll be
at least
kind of a similar.
It's mental to think that at that time, like Roman, he was still 18 months from the end of that reign ending. I think, Cardiff all the way through to main position.
Yeah.
But, we still at least knew that Roman was at least like the big guy.
Yeah.
So, our guy, Drew, had lost to the big guy. But our guy, Drew, now losing to Damian Priest, who, like we said, is only really about the fourth most important thing on his own brand, let alone when you add the whole company.
I'm a big fan of Damian Priest. We've interviewed him twice on the channel, and he's been more than lovely to us as well.
I'm certain he's a great guy. But it is just the fact that with that belt, Seth was in a similar position.
Yeah.
Really only got a bit more relevant because he did the whole WrestleMania tag match kind of angle. But can you really pinpoint a time where you could say that Seth Rollins was the champion and the face of the WWE?
No.
Like, it doesn't exist. He sat second fiddle behind Roman for a long time. Then when The Rock came back, he was third fiddle in Cody's story.
Awkward timing, isn't it? We had a similar thing with Sami Zayn not winning at Elimination Chamber for the same reason. And again, we can't, put any more praise on Damian for how he performed in this match. And Judgment Day have been one of the best things in the recent era of WWE, in my opinion, as well. And he's been a big part of that. It's just that timing-wise, it's just been a bit messy and CM Punk and whatever else, and that's fun as well, and I'm glad we're getting both sides of it. So we'll see where it goes. Hopefully it goes in a good direction, and come Money in the Bank, we've got a lot more kind of crazy theories to discuss as well. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us, mate, and your comments have been appreciated. You say you love our streams. We love your comments, buddy. Appreciate it. And anyone else that's been lurking in the background and hasn't commented so far, feel free to drop us a comment once the stream's ended as well, if you like. And or if you stay anonymous, that's fine as well. We just appreciate having you on board either way. So I've been Scott. This one's been Lucas. We've been covering Clash at the Castle, and we'll be back in the future talking more pro wrestling. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good night.
Cheers, guys.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.